was a rich boy's plaything. His first love didn't want him, and I needed protection from my stepfather. I fell in love but knew he would never feel the same, so I left him. I didn't think he would tear through the country looking for me. My bed squeaked and shook violently with a rhythm that left me breathless. I was always afraid that it would finally break during one of Ryan's visits, but somehow it kept standing. "Please, Ryan," I begged, my voice hoarse from screaming. "No more." He answered me by leaning down and sucking on my neck, before kissing my brow and doubling down on his relentless efforts. I could only shut my eyes, grip the sheets tightly, and bite down on my lip to avoid making more noise. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy what he was doing. I did, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to like how this man made my body sing with pleasure, how he knew every part of me so well and could play me with the skill of a master strumming his instrument. This was just a transaction. He got to use my body whenever he wanted, and I stayed safe from my stepfather. 9 months of not needing to look over my shoulder in exchange for being a rich man's kept pet didn't seem like a bad deal. Self-respect meant nothing when faced with an obsessed stepfather, and no money to survive because he kept ruining my reputation wherever I worked. Now I get to eat well, shop, and spend my nights with a gorgeous man. Sure, Ryan didn't love me. He probably didn't even like me as a person, but as long as he kept sending me money and keeping me safe, I didn't care. Well, I used to not care, but things change and emotions have a habit of complicating everything. I gasped as heat flooded my most sensitive area. It took another moment for me to realize we hadn't used protection. That thought yanked me out of euphoria and into immediate panic. "What did you just do?" I cried, scrambling away from him. "Why didn't you use protection?" Neither of us wanted a baby, not when this arrangement was temporary. Also, I could barely take care of myself. How could I care for an innocent new life? It wouldn't be fair. Ryan sat back on his haunches and ran a hand through his blonde hair, his body shining with perspiration. My eyes couldn't help raking over his muscular form, the smattering of hair that ran from his navel to his. I looked away, a blush creeping on my face. I had been sleeping with him for months, yet I was still too shy to openly admire him in his naked form. Ryan had been my first lover, which had surprised him. He assumed that, based on my looks, I had had many boyfriends already. I might have had a boyfriend or two in school and maybe a serious relationship once I started working. But my stepfather, Mark, forbade any relationships with boys. I wasn't even allowed to have male friends. He made sure of that by keeping a close watch on me. I used to think it was just him being overprotective, like any father would be. Relatives used to praise him for how well he looked after me, despite not being my real father. Little did I know, he was just saving me for himself. The only reason he married my mother when I was 16 was to get close to me, to wait until I reached adulthood. Mark made his first move on my 18th birthday by cornering me in the hallway. My mother had been in the kitchen, putting the finishing touches on my birthday cake. I managed to escape his clutches, but that didn't stop him from trying over and over again. Telling my mother had been my immediate option. But Mark had made her a stay-at-home wife after they got married, and I didn't earn enough to support us both. The next best thing had been moving out while he was at work, and she was out shopping, so no one could stop me. Little did I know that being a cop meant he had eyes everywhere. "It'll be fine." Ryan's mumbled response brought my focus back to the present moment. I looked at him, dumbfounded. He had been the one to warn me about not falling pregnant just to trap him. And now here he was, barely looking me in the eyes when he should be panicking. "It'll be fine?" I repeated. "How? What if I fall pregnant? Then what? I just get rid of it?" He looked at me sharply. "Get rid of it?" Ryan made it sound like I had just said the most disgusting thing. I frowned at him. I couldn't understand his reaction. What else am I supposed to do with it? Keep it and have you accuse me of trying to trap you? No, thank you. Annoyed, I wrapped a bedsheet around myself and slid off the double bed. I padded over to the bathroom and glanced at myself in the mirror. My breath hitched. Besides the usual bed hair and flush skin, there, on my neck, sat a hickey the size of a 50-pence coin. Ryan. I stormed out of the bathroom and pointed a trembling finger at my neck. What is this? You said you would never leave any marks like this on me because there's no affection between us. So what is this? I found him putting on his pants like he didn't have a care in the world, but his shoulders showed tension. I had touched them enough and studied his body when he was asleep to recognize his feelings. Just cover it up with makeup, he said, shrugging his shirt on. Or use a scarf. Or just don't go out at all until it fades. I couldn't believe my ears. The man who had been firm about the boundaries of our arrangement was now behaving as if they were no longer important. First, no protection, and now this hickey. What is wrong with you today? Ryan slid his feet into his shoes, reached into his wallet, and drew out a black card. He tossed it on the bed and gave me a complicated look. Accidents happen, he said. There's 50,000 there. That should make up for it. I'll deposit your usual monthly allowance tomorrow. With that said, he left the room. Moments later, I heard the front door open and close. He was gone. I sighed and sank down on a vanity stool, still wrapped in the bedsheet. I should have thrown the card back in his face, but that wouldn't have been practical. No one in their right mind refused money when they needed it. So far, I had $8 million saved, which was a substantial amount. Ryan was generous, giving me $500,000 every month on top of what he spent on the apartment, gifts, and clothing. I didn't need much, so I saved most of it and sold most of the designer watches, jewelry, and other accessories to social media influencers. They were always looking for a bargain. Basically, I had enough saved to start a life somewhere small and quiet. I already had my eye on a small town where no one would know me, and no one could ever find me. Ryan had done a great job of protecting me from my stepfather, but one day he would grow tired of me, and I'd be vulnerable again. I didn't know when that day would come, but I was planning for it. I could just leave now, but that would mean no longer receiving my generous monthly allowance. Another part of me wouldn't admit it, but I wasn't emotionally indifferent to Ryan. Maybe it was to be expected after being so intimate with someone for several months, but it was unwanted. I didn't want to have feelings for him. It was enough that he had taken my first time. I wasn't about to have him be my first love. That would be stupid. I did go shopping the next day, and fortunately, it was a cool day. I wore a polo neck sweater that easily covered the hickey, so I didn't have to bother with makeup. The sweater was paired with plain black jeans, sneakers, and oversized black glasses because I had become just accustomed to hiding my face in public. Although I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore, there was still the possibility of someone recognizing me. There is no such thing as being too careful, after all. Years of being on the run from my stepfather had taught me that. The mall was relatively quiet, but that was to be expected for a mid-morning on Tuesday. Most people were either at work or school, not leisurely shopping. I smiled ruefully. I was living a life of luxury, had saved millions, and I had a plan for the day Ryan would grow tired of me. Life couldn't get any better, and yet, I still had a growing disquiet within me that wouldn't go away, no matter how hard I tried. Shaking that thought away, I stopped outside a baby clothing store. I had passed by this exact shop dozens of times before, but never really paid it any attention. Today, it called to me. Last night's argument suddenly came to mind, making me come to a standstill. What if I were pregnant? My hand moved to my flat belly. My mother always used to say that it took just one try to fall pregnant. That was how she fell pregnant with me on prom night with her then boyfriend. Apparently the women in my family were incredibly fertile. Delilah? Is that you? My head whipped around, my eyes landing on a familiar woman.
Gracie.
The young woman ran toward me and threw her arms around me. I can't believe it's you. It's been ages. Why did you just disappear without telling anyone where you were? Even your parents have no idea. The mention of my parents set my heart racing. Yeah, I've just been moving around a lot and haven't really settled yet. How are you? You're quite far from our hometown. Oh, I just got a job here. Fortunately, my boyfriend comes from the city, so I was able to move in with him. Her eyes took on a meaningful glint. Do you maybe also have a boyfriend? And that's why you've been so scarce lately? No, no boyfriend. Just traveling and seeing more of the country? Ryan wasn't my boyfriend, and I wasn't about to say I was just his plaything. No one would understand it, especially when they all believed my stepfather was a good man. That's why I didn't bother reviling his vile nature to my relatives. He had painted himself as a family man, lovingly raising a daughter that wasn't even his. Gracie took my hands. We simply must sit down and catch up. How about a coffee? There's a coffee shop around the corner. That didn't seem like a good idea. Gracie had always been too nosy. She definitely tried to pry as much information out of me as possible. Not only that, she could tell someone from home that she had seen me. Mark would immediately come looking for me. My body tensed with a fear I'd come to know too well. Even if I told Gracie not to say anything, she wouldn't be able to help herself. She had been this way since childhood. I'm afraid I can't, but why don't I take down your number and I'll give you a call? I've just got a couple of errands to run and I can't delay them any further. Gracie's face fell. Oh, okay. Next time then, let's exchange contact details. She looked at me expectantly, but I was about to disappoint her again. I don't have my phone on me, and it's a new number that I haven't learned yet. Just write down your number on a piece of paper, and I'll add it to my phone later, okay? Here, write in this. I took out a notebook I used for doodles, sketches, and writing down ideas, and opened it to a blank page at the back. I offered her a pen as well, giving her a smile that I hoped seemed sincere. Little did she know I'd just tear out the page once I reached home and throw it in the trash. Gracie happily wrote down her number, making me feel a little guilty about what I'd planned, but it couldn't be helped. My safety came first. Besides, she would barely remember this meeting in a few months. We parted ways and I walked some distance before I stopped and looked back. I couldn't see her anymore. That was good. I didn't want to give myself something to do just to keep up with my lie. Instead, I entered a restaurant and found a seat way at the back in the corner, where no one would see me. I needed a moment to think about my life going forward. I didn't have a contract with Ryan. The transaction was all based on how long he wanted the situation to last. At first glance, it looked like I was getting the shorter end of the stick. I was giving my body to a man who could throw me away at any time. But after 9 months, Ryan had proved honorable, honest, and generous. That's why last night didn't make any sense. My hand moved to my belly again. What if there was a life growing inside me? I could get rid of it, but quite honestly, the idea of being a mother was growing on me. As long as I was careful, I would have enough money to give me stability for the rest of my life. If I opened a little shop, it would give me something to do and a bit of income. With stability, I would be able to raise a child on my own, I think. Don't get ahead of yourself, Delilah, I told myself. Still, buying a pregnancy test seemed like the logical thing to do. I wouldn't use it just yet. It was way too soon. I had my period coming up in 2 weeks, so I would wait to see then. If it arrived, I had nothing to worry about. If it didn't, then it was plan B. I also had to think about Gracie unwittingly exposing my location. That was a real threat. While I didn't expect her to call my mother directly, she could still tell others. Maybe I'd talk to Ryan about it and see what he had to say. He was good at risk planning, although not using protection yesterday said otherwise. I used to be on birth control, but it didn't agree with me. So we decided that the usual way would have to do. Ryan hadn't been too happy, but something was better than nothing, right? After a cappuccino and a piece of fudgy chocolate cake, I decided to go home and prepare for Ryan's visit. I ate something light because he was always like a demon in bed. I usually had something heavier after he left, that is, if I had any strength left. Usually I just fall asleep and wake up refreshed and aching deliciously the next day. Hours passed, but Ryan didn't appear. I glanced at the clock. It read 10 p.m. Ryan always arrived around 8 p.m., never later. I reached for my phone and called him, but he didn't answer. I tried 3 more times, but still no answer. Finally, I just sent a message. Just calling because you failed to come or let me know what's going on. I'm going to bed now." I then turned my phone off and got into bed, silently fuming. The least he could have done was tell me he wasn't coming. I wouldn't have gone to all this trouble of getting ready. I slept fitfully that night. It seemed I had become too dependent on seeing him nearly every day. Dark circles and bags under my eyes awaited me the following day. I wasn't the least surprised. An extra hour of skincare, soaking in a hot bath, and drinking chicken soup put me in better spirits, though. Ryan had probably been busy and couldn't make it. He would probably come this evening. I prepared myself again for his visit, but he never came, and I never received a response to any of my messages. Maybe something had happened to him, but someone would have told me. Ryan had a bunch of people working for him, and a few of his closest people knew who I was. Had he grown tired of me and was too chicken to tell me to my face? My allowance had come in as usual, but it was double the usual amount. I just assumed it was his way of apologizing. Granted that he did already give me $50,000, but he could have felt more guilty once he properly came to his senses and realized the consequences of his actions. No, I was worried he had decided to ice me out without actually saying anything. That would be cowardly of him, though. My head throbbed with the possibilities. Getting an answer from him wasn't going to happen unless he reached out to me or sent one of his employees. Until then, I had to think of what to do. Depending on a man was never a long-term plan anyway. The first thing would be to find a place to stay in my chosen town. I could look for a cozy house, or maybe a spacious apartment over a shop. I was leaning toward the second option. That meant less commuting between home and work. I grabbed my pink laptop from my bedroom and started scrolling. My heart wasn't in it, though. If Ryan didn't want to see me anymore, he should have been direct instead of leaving me in this awful state of not knowing. Silent tears slipped down my cheeks and blurred my vision. I angrily wiped them away, but they kept falling. I still managed to find the number of a real estate agent for the area I was interested in. It was too late to call her now, so I made a note to contact her in the morning. After yet another terrible night of sleep, I dragged myself out of bed and did my best to get on with my day. Sometimes I'd curse Ryan's name, and other times I would cry. I felt like I was going crazy. I had never been like this before. Finally, after nearly half a month, I realized that he probably wasn't coming back. The rent on the apartment was paid a year in advance, so I didn't have to worry about that. I couldn't wait until then, though. Not when I'd likely show by then. I finally took the pregnancy test a few days ago after missing my period. And just as my gut told me, I was pregnant. Over-the-counter tests could be wrong, so I went to a clinic and got tested. The results were the same. I wanted to tell Ryan, but what good would that do? He had already kicked me out of his life without a word. He wouldn't want a baby with me anyway, so what he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. On a Saturday night, while watching one of my favorite shows and munching on chocolate, my ultimate weakness, I heard the keypad on the door go off. Someone was putting in the incorrect password. My heart sank and my body burned with the feeling of thousands of pins and needles piercing my skin. What if it was Mark? What if he had found me? I couldn't move, couldn't look at the camera to see who it was. The person kept trying and eventually resorted to banging on the door. "Delilah, open up. Delilah." "Ryan?" My heart leaped with relief and joy, but I soon scolded myself. Why be happy about a guy who had ignored me for weeks? Also, it sounded like he was drunk. If this wasn't his apartment, I would just ignore him. Narrowing my eyes, I stomped to the door and unlocked it, yanking it open. "What are you—" I could barely get a few words out before he suddenly fell into my arms like a dead weight. I staggered back but managed to steady us. "What is wrong with you?" I complained, groaning under his weight. "Didn't you learn your lesson the last time you did this?" It was the night they first met. I had been on the run for the third time that month from my stepfather, and Ryan had been slumped in his car in a parking lot. I wouldn't have bothered if he hadn't been half hanging out of the car, with just his seatbelt keeping him from landing on the ground. I couldn't just leave him there, and he didn't seem to know where he was or where he lived. Judging by his fancy car and clothes, he would have been an easy target for opportunists. So I managed to get him in the passenger seat and drove to a cheap motel. Well, the weather turned stormy, and I decided to share the bed with him because it was too cold to sleep on the floor. At some point during sleep, our limbs were wrapped around each other, and his well-endowed member had been erect and flush against my sensitive spot. I don't recall who started it, but one of us rocked against the other, sending waves of pleasure through us. Needless to say, we both gave in to lust that night. It was then that I understood how people could have one-night stands. Ryan wanted to compensate me the following morning, but I was too embarrassed and my pride wouldn't let me take the money. It was then that he made me the offer of being his plaything. I was going to refuse, but when I saw Mark's number flash across my screen, I threw caution to the wind and added my own conditions. I was honest with him. I wanted protection from my stepfather and money to live. If he could give me that, then he could have my body. He had already taken my first time anyway. "Delilah," Ryan croaked as I led him to the couch. I pursed my lips and pushed those old memories away. "Feeling sorry for yourself, aren't you? Why did you have to come here while drunk? Why not just go home instead of bothering me?" No communication for weeks. And now you're here reeking of alcohol. Ryan just groaned and tugged at his tie. Sighing, I removed it for him and unbuttoned his shirt just enough for him to feel less restricted. "I'll get you some water so you can start flushing the alcohol down. You better not throw up on my carpet." Ryan mumbled something I couldn't hear, so I just ignored him. I said I would get him water, but I also made him a fresh pot of coffee and started preparing my version of a hangover soup. I might as well draw a bath for him and get him clean. He didn't have any clothes here. He was firm about that, but I had some loose clothing that could fit him. They'd just be short in the legs since he was so tall. I brought out the water first, adding a few things to give it a boost of electrolytes. "Here, drink this. Did you even eat anything at all today?" He shook his head and took the glass. Rolling my eyes, I went back to the kitchen to check on the soup. Half an hour in the pressure cooker was all it needed. In the meantime, a little black coffee would wake him up so he could give me proper answers. I returned to find him looking a little better and the glass empty. "Feeling better?" "A little, but my head hurts." I snorted. "Serves you right for drinking so much, especially on an empty stomach. What made you do that? You already have a low tolerance for alcohol." All right, stop scolding me like a child," he insisted. "Is that coffee for me?" I nodded. "Drink up. Soup will be ready in a bit. In the meantime, you should have a bath. I'll run you one while you have your coffee." I turned away, but he grabbed my hand. "You don't have to do that. I'll just leave. What's the point of that? I've already got the soup cooking. Just stay, and I'll call your assistant to get you later." Fine. He said it as though he was exasperated, but I could see the smile at the corners of his lips. He was trying to hide it from me, but I knew him too well. I walked away shaking my head, but I was smiling inside. Try as I might, I couldn't help but be happy to see him again. I really had missed him. Clearly I was a fool. "You done yet?" Ryan asked, appearing in the bathroom's doorway. "I don't have clothes here, by the way. Do you want me to walk around naked?" I heard the smile in his voice. He would probably do it just to get a reaction out of me. I turned to him and planted a hand on my hip. "While you obviously have a sexy body, I'd rather not have a naked man walking around in my apartment. I have something that can fit you just fine." He approached me and pulled me to his chest. "Really? Have you noticed our size difference?" I was still a little angry at him for ignoring me for weeks, so I pushed him away. "I'm well aware. Take your clothes off and get in. I'll lay out clean clothes in the bedroom. Come to the kitchen once you're done to get your soup." I didn't give him a chance to respond because I quickly left the bathroom. My mind kept spinning with thoughts about what I should do. Officially break off the arrangement? Tell him I was pregnant? Talk about running into Gracie and what that could mean for my security? I didn't know. By the time Ryan emerged from the bedroom, hair still damp and very manly despite my teddy bear t-shirt and sweatpants combo, the soup was done. I had even toasted some bread to complement the soup. "Cute," he remarked, pulling at the t-shirt. I bit back a smile and pointed at a seat. Sit and have your soup. That bath did you some good 'cause you're looking more like yourself. Do you still have a headache? I left out a glass of water and meds just in case. You always think of everything, he said sheepishly as he sat down. I said nothing, choosing to sip my tea instead. I watched him from under my eyelashes, wondering if he would give an explanation for his absence. It was the least he could do. However, he said nothing. He just took the meds and started quietly slurping up the soup. Disappointment ate away at my expectations. That made me get up and fetch the chocolate from the kitchen cupboard. I sat down with the box and started popping one after the other like they were crisps. Although I loved chocolate, even I knew this was far too much. I couldn't help myself though. I just wanted more and more. You're on your period, aren't you? No, I replied without thinking. They're late.